Today is January 14th, 2022. We have two very special guests on the show today. From the Free Mutulu Now campaign, Maria Fernandez and Jomo Muhammad. Maria and Jomo are both organizers with the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, and they're both based in DC. Thank you both for coming on the show, and welcome to the show. Today, I wanted to talk to you about Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who remains locked up for over 35 years, I believe, as a political prisoner. Who is Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and why is he someone that we should all know about?
All right. First, want to thank you for the opportunity to come on and share about Dr. Mutulu Shakur and the campaign. And today, we also is the 85th birthday of political prisoner Sundiata Acole. So we want to lift him up, wish him happy birthday. And for those who are watching the show, should go and sign and share the petition. He's also been a political prisoner for over 40 years. And if you understand the connection to Sundiata, to Assata, to Zaid Shakur, who lost his life on the New Jersey Turnpike, and his direct connection to Mutulu Shakur, then we can begin to talk about who Mutulu is. Mutulu is a lot of things to many people. He's a father, a grandfather. Many of us know him as a healer through his work doing acupuncture in New York. Many of us know him. I discovered him through Tupac, growing up in that era, wondering who gave Tupac all this wonderful wisdom and insight, and discovering Mutulu was on the end of that. He's also a human rights activist and organizer, and part of the New African Independence Movement, and directly seen as a founder of the New African People's Organization and the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. So Mutulu is many things to many people, but most of all, I think it's in his name, right? Mutulu means for the love of the people. I can't, when you read the stories that have been coming out most recently about even his continued impact while in prison, it's clear that that's who he is, an embodiment of this for the love of the people. And then he talks about his name, Shakur, meaning one who's grateful, one struggling to be humble, respectful, and forward, but non-capitulating in the face of our oppressors. And I think that's who Mutulu is. And if you believe in any of those values of healing, justice, love, liberation, hip hop, then Mutulu is connected to you, and you should know how you can help free Mutulu.
Absolutely. And can you guys explain more about his connection to the Black Panther Party, the Lincoln Hospital Uprising, or the Republic of New Africa? I mean, there's so many things to discuss with regards to what you outlined perfectly. And thank you for connecting him to Sundiata, Zaid, and Assata, of course. Thank you for making that connection.
Yeah, is that me again? Looking for more. So I guess there's a long history because like so many of his generation, Mutulu was radicalized very early on in his life. And part of his first radicalization was taking care of his mother, who was blind. And so him trying to actually help his mom navigate the social service system in New York brought him face to face with the cruel brutality of our condition, right? And he learned very, very quickly that the government is not here to help people. They weren't there to help his mother. He was radicalized. He talks about the community he grew up in being one that was helping to cultivate and grow folks. And so he got involved in the movement early on at 15. Part of the organizing that happened in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, with Baba Herman Ferguson, who was a principal at that time and was leading a fight in the community for community control of our schools. And Mutulu was a part of that struggle and was radicalized in that struggle. And he goes on to join and be a part of the Revolutionary Action Movement and part of the Black Guard. And a couple years later, at the second conference of the Republic of New Africa, convening in New Bethel, where the police surrounded Aretha Franklin's father's church and shot over 30 bullets inside, attempting to kill the activists who had gathered, trying to declare their self-determination. That Mutulu is credited with saving the life of Herman Ferguson and his partner, Aya Ferguson, turning his body and throwing his body between the bullets. the Fergusons. And so just showing tremendous courage early on in life. Again, goes on to be to learn acupuncture. Again, a beautiful story there, right? His daughters are injured in a car accident. Western medicine tells him that there's nothing that he can do. He sees an ad for acupuncture, tries it out on his daughters. The tremendous amount of healing happens, and he begins to realize, again, for the love of the people, how this could be used, and begins to do the work around learning acupuncture. Again, at the time, acupuncture was outlawed here in the United States. And so, again, they were revolutionaries leading now what seems to be the trend, right? Now you can go anywhere and get acupuncture, but they were a part of a movement. He was part of a movement of revolutionary health practitioners really trying to challenge the medical industry, challenge the U.S. government's policy of using methadone to treat drug addiction, what was creating more drug addiction. And now what we know 50 years later is that Richard Nixon flooded our communities with drugs in an attempt to criminalize our movements and to criminalize our communities, to justify the mass incarceration that we're a part of, that Mutulu is a part of and captured in. And so this is so much more. There's even, part of his work too. And we say as part of the reason why he continues to be held was the research, or why he was captured was the research he was doing around COINTELPRO. Again, at that time in the 60s, you had the murder of I think it was like 12 but Black Power activists, from Fred Hampton to other Panthers. You had the rest of the Panther 21. And so he and others began the initial investigations and lawsuits into COINTELPRO, exposing the illegal activity and cooperation of local law enforcement and the federal government. And so here's a tremendous body of organizing and political work, really defending our people, healing our people from the impact of our condition and our oppression in this country.
Yeah, I mean, I would add, as someone who grew up organizing in New York City, particularly as someone who I'm from the Bronx. Anyone who's from the Bronx knows what Lincoln Hospital was and sometimes continues to be, right? Like if you had to go to Lincoln Hospital, there was a chance that you wouldn't come back out alive, right? And I think that was a very clear condition around the lack of medical and healthcare infrastructure for particularly Black Puerto Rican community in New York City. And I think I came to know Mutulu through the Lincoln Detox takeover, Lincoln Hospital takeover, and then what became the Lincoln Detox Center. And the work there, particularly Jomo, what you mentioned around how to heal our communities from drug addiction, particularly drug addiction that was fed by the federal government and policing agencies in our communities with the flooding of drugs and criminalization. And I think it's for me, that you couldn't organize in New York City, you couldn't organize in the Bronx without talking about the Lincoln Hospital, the takeover, and the Lincoln Detox, and the work of the Young Lords and Mutulu and Black revolutionary organizers who took it over, who created institutions, right, that continue in some way, shape, or form to impact how we talk about healing, how we talk about the lack of support for Black communities in New York City and in the Bronx. So for me, I came to Mutulu through that work. And I stayed to support the work around Baba Mutulu and Dr. Mutulu, because it feels really important right now. And as we're talking about, right, living under a global pandemic, where again, it is exposed that these institutions and the empire do not care about our people, that it actually the practice of creating healing mechanisms that actually treat addiction and then radicalize people and bring folks into movement through that healing feels like it's a lesson we have to continue to learn and lean into, particularly right now in this moment.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying all that. And I think to kind of broaden the audience and get maybe younger people involved, even though Tupac's, people are less and less aware of who Tupac was. But not to be overly corny, but even though it sounds corny, their relationship was profoundly important to both of them. Can either of you or both of you talk about what relationship Tupac and Mutulu had?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he sees him as his son, right? They make no distinction around that. Tupac was the son of Afeni Shakur, who was a comrade to Mutulu Shakur and a comrade to Assata Shakur, part of the Panther 21. So Tupac is seen as a child of the New African Independence Movement. And many don't know he was a leader in the New African Panthers, which is our youth organization. He was the first president of that. And so and Mutulu talks about in some of the interviews how Tupac grew up just in movement space, going to the movement to these meetings, and as a community organizer, I could recognize that. I know that that's my kid, right? I mean, dragging them to all the meetings in the back, offering their assessment of what's happening from their wise age of 8 years old. And so they had a loving relationship, one that continued even through the imprisonment of Mutulu being behind bars. And I think one of the most beautiful pieces I've read from Mutulu is the letter to Tupac on his transition. And I think it's really beautiful and speaks to the kind of relationship that they had, and that all of us could strive to have as parents to our children.
And on a heavier topic, what is the status of Mutulu's health? I know that he was diagnosed with cancer. What is the status of his health?
That's you, Jomo.
Oh, that's me. So Mutulu is not doing well. I think this is some of the urgency of the campaign, why we have picked it up. So Mutulu has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and it has been, I guess, ruled or deemed that it is irreversible. And so it's ticking. It's terminal. I think that's really hard for me to say. And while in prison, he's contracted COVID twice. And so he's taking, so having survived that, now there's what we hear now is that he needs a particular medicine, and that he's just existing in these kind of day-to-day pain from this bone marrow cancer in his body. And again, to Maria's point around the inadequate health system, it's even more inadequate in the prison. So he has no access to health care and to healing that would ease the cancer or even be able to treat it in some kind of way. And so his health is worsening, and again, this underscores or lights the fire, ignites the energy around why we say free Mutulu now.
Absolutely. And what is the status of the campaign to free Mutulu?
That is you, Maria.
I can talk a little bit about the kind of where we are in the campaign, but I think, Jomo, it would be also useful for you to share a little bit about kind of the legal pieces of the campaign as well. And I think I will be remiss if I don't also share that while his health continues to be a struggle, his spirits are still high. We had an event in December trying to rally against support for Dr. Mutulu, and he sent his greetings through his comrades and his legal team, and acknowledged that while he cannot write to everyone who writes him, though we continue to encourage folks to write Dr. Mutulu and write political prisoners, he is grateful for the campaign that's active and everybody who is organizing for his release. So I wanted to just, if you have signed a petition, if you have written to Dr. Mutulu Shakur, know that he is grateful for that. And we want to continue to build the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement to free Dr. Mutulu Shakur. So in terms of the campaign, right now we are organizing our communities in all of our chapters. We have 8 chapters as part of the national Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. So we're continuing to do education because folks don't talk about political prisoners in our everyday lives, right? It's oftentimes not even talked about in movement spaces. So we want to continue to bring awareness to Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who he is, who he was, who he continues to be, the importance of his work, and the legacy that he continues to build, that we are so grateful to be able to be a part of. So we're asking folks to endorse the campaign. We can share all these links to you, but we're asking folks to endorse the campaign as an organization. We want as many folks who believe in justice and freedom and liberation for Black people and all people to continue to endorse the campaign, to sign on, to organize locally in their cities, what we're calling Shakur squads, where there are 1, 2, 3 people who are gathered. We can work miracles to engage more people and bring more folks into the fold in the campaign. We're also asking folks to sign the petition. We have a little bit over 55,000 signatures in the petition to the Bureau, to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which is the federal agency in which Dr. Mutulu Shakur is held captive in, to continue to put pressure for his release. We know that he's been denied parole, but he has served his time. He has served his time, and they continue to deny his release. So we need Baba home now. So the more that we can get folks to sign the petition, to bring awareness, to organize locally, to continue to add pressure to the Federal Bureau of Prisons for his release, we're encouraging everybody to do so. We're also encouraging folks to donate directly to Dr. Mutulu Shakur. The money will go directly to him, to his health, to his family. And then we're also, again, encouraging everybody to write. Again, he may not be able to write you back, but it is so important that we continue to show love and to show up for our political prisoners who have lived a life of sacrifice for his people, for us. So those are the things that we're trying to move. We're organizing. We're seeing some particular important opportunities this year, and we're not going to end 2022 without bringing Baba home. There's some. I'm going to kick it to Jomo to talk a little bit about legally where the case is now.
Yeah, because he was denied parole, I think 9 times. And there's a lawsuit. I think there's a lawsuit that he started against the parole board, the parole commission, and the Bureau of Prisons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's some of what we speculate has been some of the kind of punishment and his continued imprisonment was exposing the Bureau of Prisons. And now what we see right now, the current director who's leaving, I can't remember, it's like Michael Carver, something like that, but he's being pressured to leave and being pushed out the Bureau of Prisons for probably the exact same reasons that Mutulu filed that lawsuit. And so we think that again, he needs to be released. Like Maria said, he's actually served his time. And I think that's the important part of all of this, is that if this was a just system and he wasn't a political prisoner, then he served the time for his crime and he should be let go.
But he's 71 years old, I believe, with terminal bone marrow cancer. Also very hard for me to say. Who does he pose a threat to at this juncture? Like it's
right.
It's just,
so, yeah, which is why we know that this is a political act, right? The United States claims to not have political prisoners and doesn't recognize folks who are incarcerated for political reasons as political prisoners, which is why they use other things to criminalize, then capture and incarcerate. So I think that's important to know. The US will tell you that there are no political prisoners here in the United States, and we know actually that is true. So I think what's important to know too about the piece now is that there are 200 people, including Dr. Mutulu Shakur, who are under these old sentencing guidelines. So they will not be released unless the commission grants their release, right? And that includes Leonard Peltier, right? Another political prisoner, and countless, actually, numerous political prisoners who are stuck under these old law sentencing guidelines, which makes it much more challenging to be able to for them to be released, because it falls under this commission, right? Who at whatever discretion. And they've used ridiculous things to say that Dr. Mutulu shouldn't be released. Him signing a letter, stiff resistance, right? They're like, oh, he continues to pose a threat. So they're using all these things, again, as punishment to continue to deny his release, even though he has served his time and should have been released, 2018, 2019? Yeah. And so they continue to deny his release. And, if we're also looking at the his case. I'm not sure, folks, we could also send this, but The Intercept did a really great article, particularly about his legal case. And he has Jomo, you have the number, but a little bit about like 900 good time. So if they were to calculate that, he would be brought home right now, right? So it's about, so I think folks are trying to do a lot of different, the legal team is trying to do a lot of different strategies to continue to push for his release. But we know, right, that they're using all of these things to spread the lie that he continues to be a quote unquote threat, right, for society. But we know that they're just trying to keep him, and we need him home because he doesn't have a lot of time.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you guys a kind of general political prisoner question. In the wake of the murder of George Floyd by the police in May of 2020, there was this incredible kind of grassroots movement, which led to the defund movement. But one of the things that kind of seemed lacking from that movement was the centering of political prisoners. And what is the importance of continuing to fight for political prisoners in the U.S. and why is it important to center them in any movement for liberation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to, if you are an abolitionist organizer, then the release of political prisoners and organizing for the release of political prisoners has to be front and center. It is a decarceration strategy, right? If you're thinking about it that way, but fundamentally, we need to continue to organize, to bring attention to, and to fight for the release of political prisoners because they have made the greatest sacrifice. They have fought for the liberation of our people. They continue to be mentors while incarcerated. They continue to organize and support movements for freedom and justice, for human rights. And I think for me, particularly as someone who grew up organizing and in community spaces, it feels really, really important to be able to have our elders who are our mentors, who continue to support the organizing work and to continue to build our leadership and to continue to build the struggles for freedom in this country to be home. And we have a responsibility. Asada taught us that it is our number one duty. Our number one priority should be the freedom of political prisoners. And if we love Asada, then we should be able to love the people that fought with, that walked with, that sacrificed for Asada. And I think that is the biggest piece. We have to end mass incarceration. We have to end this policing, the violence of police in this country, and we have to free our political prisoners. Because then what is the work that we will do? And I think it's important to know too that in this current iteration, when COINTELPRO may or not exist in that function, we are being surveilled, criminalized, and policed daily. And as organizers, it is our responsibility to end that and to work to free our political prisoners, because that's the only way that we're going to continue to move our legacy forward. And we cannot call for defunding the police or to abolish prisons. And if in those demands, we're not also talking about our political prisoners. And I just want to say that during the Spirit of Mandela tribunal that just happened this year, at the end, there was a celebration. And nothing, I saw Baba Sekou and Baba Jalil dancing, like just being free after all these years. And that showed me what's possible. Like they deserve to live free for the level of sacrifice that they put. And we then have to take the charge to do that work and continue to do the work to free our people.
Thank you. That was really powerful. Those are all the questions I have for both of you today. Is there anything that either of you want to add that we didn't discuss?
Just a reminder that to sign the petition to free Dr. Mutulu Shakur, to endorse the campaign and create active Shakur squads in your city. He's coming up 36 years on February 12th, I believe. And, we have to have a responsibility to free our political prisoners, and thinking about Russell Maroon Schultz and the work that happened to free him for the little bit of time for him to be able to be with his loved ones. If that didn't create urgency for us, then I don't know what does. We have to bring our political prisoners home.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. I hope to have you guys back on soon, just to see how the campaign's going, just get updates, to talk generally. I mean, you guys gave me so much wisdom and knowledge and animo as well. It just really reinvigorated me after a long week. So thank you so much for coming on the program, and I really appreciate it.